the App Store saves billions, iPad repairs, and Apple's gaming move. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Slack. Discussions, questions, and answers, and a place to talk tech with your friends. The MacVoices Slack is available to all patrons of MacVoices. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices and join in. Before we go on, I want to welcome Brian Flanagan Arthurs. He showed up. Brian, good to have you. I'm glad you made it. I know that you were dealing with some other things in spite of the fact that you're on summer vacation.
Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate being here. And sorry I'm late.
Don't worry about it. Anytime. Next story up is Apple says its App Store rules have saved users billions. That's with a B, web. Billions. Again, what are your reactions to this? I don't think there's much question about it. I know that Apple draws a lot of fire for maybe not catching every single thing that comes through, and at times maybe not being as diligent as some people would like to see them. But does anybody doubt that they've saved? I don't know how you quantify it, but let's just assume that even if you take 20% of this number, it's still a whole pile of money that people have not been relieved of. Jeff?
I'm sitting here looking at some of the info for this. Okay, so they're saying over $2 billion in 2024, but they've prevented over $9 billion in fraudulent transactions. I have no doubt, like you said, Apple has been instrumental in saving people from being scammed more than once. I have a feeling that Apple's making this announcement because they want to make sure that everyone knows that having app stores that are tightly walled like Apple's are a really great thing. And how do you make politicians and the public wrap their head around that in a way that makes sense for them? Well, you tell them how many billions of dollars you've saved for people because they didn't get scammed out of all that money.
Yeah. According to this, Apple terminated over 146,000 developer accounts over fraud concerns. Let's see what else.
And another 139,000 developer enrollments too. So they killed 146,000 and stopped 139. So, yeah.
Okay, how many of those belong to Epic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this to me is it's great PR for the App Store, as a time where people are being told that they can. Oh yeah, you can jump outside the App Store and you can make your purchases, and you can go to alternate app stores and download things, and okay. It'll probably all work out, but if not, don't call Apple.
Yeah, why would you? I mean, it sounds like you think that everything we buy should be bought through Apple. I should get my milk through Apple, and we make transactions all the time without the nanny Apple protecting us, and somehow we manage.
Oh, Jim, what did I just say? Yes, the majority of the time it's going to be. I think it'll be fine. But, you have a platform here, not the App Store platform, but the iOS platform that scammers and other evil people want to target. And so, you're taking down one line of defense here. How much of a difference it would make, I have no idea. I don't have access to the data, and even if I did, I'm not sure I could read it. But common sense says that this is one more place that there's going to be just a little less security. Yeah. Marty, you're looking pensive.
I think it's the numbers are really staggering when you think of if the numbers are accurate, and there's no reason to assume they're not, but it's pretty staggering. I mean, it also kind of talks of the size of Apple's App Store and their whole system, their iCloud system, for being able to deal with these different bad elements and intervening on that part. Unfortunately, I think it's great PR, but it probably won't help them in any court cases. It might help from a domestic standpoint, any cases that spring up, and they have been springing up state by state, in terms of giving some pushback on states or the feds trying to do something with this domestically. But it's not going to fix what's going on with Epic.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting. I scrolled down on the article and looked at some of the comments, and one I found to be pretty good and pretty insightful. It says, the two things can be true at once. The App Store has and does protect users in a meaningful way, and their payment policies can be unfair. So, kind of holistically, there could be multiple things going on at once.
Good point. Good point. Barry in the chat room says, I don't doubt the stats. They have more work to go, I think. If they're going to go all in on family friendly, why are there so many gambling apps? Yeah, Barry, that's a very fair question. It is worth noting, though, that according to the article, over 10,000 illegitimate apps were blocked on pirate storefronts, including malware, pornography apps, gambling apps, and pirated versions of legitimate apps from the App Store. So,
what is a pirate storefront? I mean, to me, most of these are nonsensical. There is no such thing as a pirate storefront. There's only Apple storefront. It says, in the past month, 4.6 million attempts to install or launch illicitly distributed apps have been stopped. What does that mean? How does somebody attempt to install or launch an illicitly distributed app?
I'm assuming that means developers that are using I forgot the word, that when you can sideload.
yeah.
But you can't sideload on iOS devices.
You can the provisioning thing where you can allow an app, like if it's part of a company and it's from outside the App Store and it can still be loaded, that can be abused. Apple shuts it down very quickly. So I'm assuming that's what they're referring to for some of this.
I think that they would say that, and that seems very unlikely to me that there would be 4.6 million attempts to use the enterprise thing to do that. And if there was, you'd think Apple would just shut the whole thing down.
Jim.
If somehow people are doing something 4.6 million attempts blocked, that means it was done in, blocked in some automated manner. So how'd they do that?
Well, they're not going to tell you because they're able to do it. I mean, and I'm surprised.
I'm
surprised.
You're talking magic. You need some sort of. You can't just wave your hand and say magic. There's absolutely no discussion here of what methodologies of what Apple is talking about. I mean, to me, everyone's saying, "Oh, yeah, this seem." I believe these numbers. I totally don't believe them. I think they're basically made up because there's no. How would they count them if they wanted to?
Jim, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Because first of all, that should be easy. How many times you can count logins? You can count anything that an application does if you decide to build it that way. And if Apple has automated things to kick in to stop nefarious activities, why would they not include a counter of some kind?
Well,
So,
if stopping judging, that's like spam detection. How do you detect spam? And have you seen it? That's very problematic. And, I assume most of us go in and look at our spam folders occasionally because there are mistakes made. Any kind of, when you talk about automated systems for detecting, malicious activity, that is not something that's perfected. So, if they're, saying, well, we've got some automated system, well, then it's surely knocking out a lot of valid transactions or activity as well.
Oh, maybe so. And I would think that, we don't have any published figures on it, but if I'm a legitimate developer and my app is getting blocked, I'm going to call Apple, and I'd like to think that they're going to try to work with me to figure out why their automated systems think that I'm doing something nefarious.
That's adorable, Chuck.
Yeah, well,
Apple working with a developer. Please join some of the, Apple does not work with developers. Developers, basically see Apple as the obstacle, and Apple, they reject apps without, constantly, without even telling you why.
Jim, you know what? If developers are having that experience, then go somewhere else. Because a lot of
developers are.
Right, fine, but if I were a developer, and in fact, this applies to anything. I mean, if I go to a store and they abuse me in some way, I'm not going back. And so, that's where I don't know that the harshness that you're attributing.
People do that. For example, it's well known that Walmart is very harsh with its vendors, for example, but it's a big market, so. Back in, when I used to sell software through distributors, and they treated their vendors horribly, but that was the only way to reach the market. So if you wanted to sell software, well, you had to take your lumps and be treated horribly. And in some cases go out of business because of it. So same thing here.
Okay. Jeff?
All right, so here's my totally by the seat of my pants hypothesis that I just came up with on how Apple has come up with these figures, and it's horrible because I can summarize it in a single word: extrapolation. They haven't saved this much money for people because you'd have to show that money to say, look what we saved. What I think has happened for a lot of these numbers is that they've caught apps, and they before anyone even uses them, probably get them blocked, and then they have data on how many times apps are typically downloaded and how much money people are spending through different apps, and so they're using all this other data they have and extrapolating out of that. Well, this is how the number of people that probably would have downloaded the app, and of those people, here's how many would probably have done transactions, and this is about how much that typically comes out to. Therefore, based on what we have blocked, we can extrapolate out and say, well, we've saved people over $2 billion this year, and total, it's been over $9 billion. Aren't we great?
Jeff, I'm not sure that's horrible. I mean, look, what did I say at the beginning? If you applied a 20% rule to every statistic here, the statistics are still pretty impressive.
Well, about half the time.
So okay, half the time.
No, that
know.
that was the joke part because you
Yeah,
know
I-
statistics. Okay.
Yeah, I know. But I guess the point is, okay, so the numbers came from somewhere. The point is that these are large numbers, and Apple's not. They're just not. I just don't believe that anybody in today's litigious environment is going to just throw numbers around without being able to back them up in some reasonably legitimate way. So, did they count out exactly 146,000 developers accounts terminated over fraud? I don't buy that for a second, but the number, somebody did a rounding number, somebody did an extrapolation. I'll take that, but it's still an important number and an important point to make. I see a lot of people just looking at me. I don't know. Anybody else want in this before we move on? All right, let's go on to something a little more controversial. How's that?
Oh, yeah.
You can now do self-repair for your iPad.
How is that controversial?
Well, maybe it's not
that.
I'm not sure it's controversial, but who's going to, is anybody here going to do it? I mean,
no.
Yeah.
I did see a post that maintained that likely the parts would cost more than the devices were worth.
Oh, that's interesting.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So good for Apple. I mean, this removes the whole right to repair thing and gets them out of the crosshairs of those folks. But I can't. I mean, I depend on my iPad. I cannot imagine me trying to crack my iPad open to repair something.
Well, if you don't want
I think this mostly means that some small non-Apple shops can, or any non-Apple shops can now work on, and maybe places like where Eric is at universities could, have a tech department that did stuff like that, things like that, or larger corporations could bring that in-house.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, Dave, I want to turn to you, since that would be potentially something, because you're in corporate IT, and I know you've talked about your company uses iPads. Is this something that you would seriously consider trying to bring in house?
No way. We would never do it. It's not something that's worth an expense whatsoever. We'd rather just outsource it or work with Apple Care and have them service it. You hire a contracting team to manage the whole process, and then they would incorporate that into their. If they do that, that's their prerogative. As long as they get fixed. And I'm not saying anything specific about my company. In general, I don't see companies wanting to spend a lot of money on that type of service because it's just there's too much overhead. You have to have a full-time employee to do it. Or even contractors. Let the MSP, a managed service provider, take care of that. And if they choose to do that, they will. But the thing is, these MSPs are probably going to just opt to working with purchasing the iPads and include the enterprise version of Apple Care, and that would get taken care of because Apple would come on site, or whatever contracted repair folks that are there, and they would fix whatever had to be fixed. So then there would be no need to have these parts on hand or doing anything like that.
Marty, Eric, same question to you guys, because you both are associated with universities. Is this something that your IT department you think would consider doing?
My IT department would go, whoopsie, looks like you broke it.
Sounds pretty common in the education world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I could see somebody thinking it was a good idea for maybe a security reason, but again, the cost is enough that you could take the iPad, shred it, and then buy a new iPad, and it's then still secure.
Okay. I'm fascinated by this. I think it's a great move on Apple's part to get out of the right to repair thing, but I have a hard time believing. And unless you are just somebody who wants to geek around and crack the case on something to see what it looks like and help you understand it, And if that's you, great, good for you. But I would feel much better giving my beloved iPad to an Apple technician to repair.
Yeah, it's sort of like they created a doorway. Okay, you asked us for a doorway. We gave you a doorway. If you want to go through it, fine. But I don't think most folks will go through it.
I think,
and those that do, that will go to like a store and say, "Can you fix this for me?" Probably those consumers aren't as informed as they should be about things like Apple Care and the difficulty of secondhand providers doing those kinds of fixes.
And I'm not even sure that there may be some Apple stores where the repairs are done on site, but I think every time I've had to take something in, hardly anything gets done in the store. It might get tested out in the store, but it doesn't actually get fixed in the store. They send it off to a technician, overnight it there, overnight it back, and the service is fantastic. I mean, because you have visions of being without your computer or your iPad for a month, and most of the time it's back in 2, 3, 4 days, depending on where it has to go and where you are. Dave, were you saying something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to jump in again here. The fact of the matter is that the Apple Care is going to be something that they want to use to get this thing serviced, and that's going to be the only thing that really wants to do it. I look on the enterprise side of things. That is a valuable tool. Yeah, and it doesn't cost that much more by going with the enterprise version of Apple Care. And you guys don't tend to see that, but it does have a lot different tiers where they assess what you're going to get, and you can get longer warranties on these products too. Sometimes 4 years, whereas standard consumer Apple Care, you can't do that. Actually, you can. I take that back. You can pay renewals every year, but in the enterprise side, you can have a one fixed Apple Care for 4 years if you wanted to.
If anybody out there is repairing their own iPads, please contact me. I'd love to know how it goes, and I'd love to know what your thinking is. If it's something other than just I wanted to see what it looks like in there.
One more point, if you don't mind.
No, Dave, go.
These third party repair shops, they always had the challenge to get parts. Now Apple's opening that up too. So not only you can fix it and you can get the tools that you need. These guys can buy those tools if they so wish, but they can get these parts and be able to service the product. And because there's plenty of places that don't have Apple stores nearby, and good example, our friend Ben, who lives in Iowa, his nearest store is like 3 hours away. He's not going to drive all the way out to a store that far. So why not? Wouldn't the local area might possibly have a repair shop that would be local, and they don't have to have a relationship with Apple. They can now buy these parts, where Apple was very restrictive and you could do that before. They're opening it up a lot more. So,
I'm glad you brought up the third parties, my intent is not to disparage them.
No,
but because there are some great independent Apple repair shops out there. We've had 2 in my area, 1 closed. I believe the 1 is still operating. But like the ones in the mall, are you really comfortable, or is anybody really comfortable taking their machines in to someone like that and having them open it up and poke around inside?
Especially those kiosks that they have.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Yeah. I mean, fix your iPhone. We'll replace your screen.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, very hard pressed to do something like that. I think I'd rather ship my phone off to get it repaired properly and buy a burner for a couple days.
That's the thing. People were not like us, who are Apple knowledgeable, that they see it in the mall and they have a cracked screen. Hey, this is a great deal, and they're going to probably charge a little less. Entices them to do it, and let's not say that these places aren't reputable and do good work, but yeah, you got to be buyer beware and be aware of what reviews that these particular shops have had.
Yeah, I don't mind endorsing this. I have an old iPhone 6S that I can still use it as a phone, but mainly I use it as a camera, as a secondary camera. But the battery was just it was basically worthless. And I found a place that repaired phones, and they had a battery for it in stock, and did it for a very reasonable price. But that was still my iPhone, and so I made sure that I plugged it in and I wiped everything. I mean, I took it the whole way back to factory settings, and then once it was fixed, I just reloaded it from iCloud, and everything was fine. But and this was a reputable chain, but I still was not comfortable handing over that with access to iCloud or access to anything else. So I wanted it taken down the whole way. And I have no reason to believe that they're anything but legitimate, but better safe than sorry. Barry gets the last word. I would rather drive 100 miles to the nearest Apple store than handing my device over to a kiosk in the mall.
Agree.
Yeah, right there with you, Barry. I don't think we have any. Well, we have some people here that dabble in games occasionally. Apple has acquired a tiny two-person developer. They developed a game called Sneaky Sasquatch that apparently has been a quite the hit on Apple Arcade. I'm maybe a little embarrassed to say I've never even heard of Sneaky Sasquatch. Has anybody else?
No.
Okay, was this? Eric. Oh, Brian and Eric. Eric gave 2 thumbs up, and Brian raised his hand. Tell us about Sneaky Sasquatch.
I haven't played it. I heard of it though.
Oh, okay.
I was familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. So Eric, are you our Sneaky Sasquatch?
It's fun. You know, they when you start, it's kind of gets you out of the house and down a trail, and you go a little bit, and they've got a hint raccoon that explains what you probably want to do and sends you on your way. Then you get yelled at, and then the raccoon comes back and says, "Oh, no, you have to be sneaky," and that's the beginning of everything. And then you go in and you have to figure out how to get something to eat out of some poor camper's cooler who is going to come back and starve. But, you had lunch. You don't eat it at the cooler, though. You got to find a picnic table because we're civilized. And then, get done with that, and you go to head home, and the ranger for the campground or whatever is sitting there sleeping near the entrance. You got to sneak by. So there's a different thing to tap to say that you go up on your toes and you sneak out. So you don't make as much noise because your feet are big. And then the raccoon helper sends you off on your way, says, get a good sleep for the night. And, we'll start again in the morning. So yeah, it's good.
I will never get that time back. By the way,
well, then you're just gonna have to play the game so you get the actual real visuals.
Well, there must be some people like it. 215,000 ratings and average of 4.9 out of 5.
Listen, I think this is interesting because there was quite a bit being made about this was the first game developer studio that had been acquired by Apple. Yes, I know it's 2 people, but it's interesting to see that maybe they're finally putting a little focus on gaming, but not as much the big bad tentpole games, but these relatively simple, small, and that's not disparaging any Sneaky Sasquatch or any other game, but something that is more geared toward the handheld market. So, yeah, good. Eric, I mean, you were oddly specific about all of this. So is it fair to say that you spent a lot of time as a Sneaky Sasquatch?
No. I mean, that's just the opening. That's the first time you play that. You get all of that in a short little segment. So I compare it really to playing a game of solitaire or this, right? And you've got something you're waiting for. I don't do well waiting. I get impatient. So I either play solitaire or a short game. and there's like, basically a short chapter, a short round, and you play it, and then you're done, and you put it away, and then you get back to work. Because you're just trying to distract yourself enough so you don't get impatient and reboot the machine that you just needed to wait an extra 3 or 4 minutes for. Or
Okay.
you're sitting in a car waiting for somebody to come out after they're doing whatever it is they're doing that you didn't want to do. So, you're
This is getting more specific by the minute,
like,
Eric.
You go to the hardware store and you don't get out because they're having a sale on tools, and you know that if you get out and you go in, you're going to buy another set of batteries and another chainsaw, and you can't afford that, so you sit in the car, and this gives you something to do so you don't get impatient, go inside, and
Okay.
Apple's next press release. We've saved Eric Bolden $750,000 this year alone by using our app store to keep him out of Home Depot.
Yes. And there's no chainsaw shortage because we were able to do this. Otherwise, Eric would have bought them all.
I tell you, Milwaukee Tools came out with a dual battery chainsaw, extra long blade.
Did it just get hot in here?
Yeah. I knew I should have stopped this earlier.
I should have had the game. Yeah.
Does anybody crave a cigarette like I do?
Oh, my. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.